Night one of WrestleMania is in the books. Let's go to the review here on the Squared Circle Psycho Babble. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. Ralph, let's get right down to it. The first match, SmackDown Tag Team Championship. The Usos do retain against Rick Boogs and Shinsuke Nakamura. Nice entrance by Shinsuke and Rick Boogs. Nice little guitar playing. Couple missed notes like I feared were going to happen, but that's not what everybody... We're not going to talk about the missed notes. There were a couple times it happened. I think most people are talking with this match is the unfortunate injury that Rick Boogs sustained. He tore his patella tendon and his quad, completely blowing up his knee on a spot where he was trying to carry both Usos and his knee just gave out. Obviously cut the match short, and Usos retain. I think they were going to retain anyway, but I think the match was good heading up to that point, and then it just kind of derailed due to the injury.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate. I mean, I didn't know. I actually thought, based on the entrance and the fact that this was going on first, we kind of talked about the fact that we felt like the Usos might actually drop the titles just for the sake of like building tension that they have to prove themselves to Roman leading into night two, all this stuff.
Yep.
But we were going to get that. Really unfortunate with Boogs. Wasn't a bad match leading up to that point, but it was pretty obvious that match either got cut short or, you know, they had to call an audible, whatever the case was. Certainly affected the match. But, you know, it wasn't bad. It just unfortunate situation leading into the match. So
Right. I think part of it was just, I thought originally it was a kayfabe injury. Like they were going to try to write him off for some reason, and then Nakamura would be part of the storyline against the Usos in the future because, you know, we never got the follow-up to when Shinsuke lost that gauntlet match because Roman Reigns, you know, used his power to get Adam Pearce into that gauntlet match. Yep. No follow-up to that. And maybe that would have been a catalyst to this to kind of get him to Roman Reigns after WrestleMania. But hopefully Shinsuke can bounce back from this as a singles guy because it's obvious they use Rick Boogs as a way to get Shinsuke over. And I think it worked for the most part. And Rick Boogs was over himself. So hopefully he has a speedy recovery. He could get back into the ring. He's very entertaining for a lot of people. And it's a tough injury. And I hope Shinsuke can bounce back from this. And, you know, they continue to push him as a singles guy for the time being.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Shinsuke Nakamura, depending on if they actually want to get behind him and push him like they did, you know, back when he was winning the Royal Rumble and stuff like that, there's no question about it. I mean, he can certainly be positioned in a way where he can be made to feel special, even if that's in like the IC title, the US title. I mean, he could fit in that role. I know that's not necessarily the most celebrated title right now, even though it should be. But he'll be fine on his own until Boogs makes a recovery and then eventually makes his way back.
Yeah, I totally agree. But let's head to the next match here. History was made in this match. Drew McIntyre kicks out of the End of Days, the first person to ever do that. This is why wrestlers today need to protect their damn finishers. It got a nice reaction. The match itself was a pretty decent match. I understand some people might have not been invested in it. They're not, you know, invested in the happy Corbin, happy folks, Madcap Moss character. I myself don't like the character, but Drew McIntyre has had good matches with both Corbin and Madcap Moss during this whole 3-month, 4-month feud. And I think they delivered in a way where, you know, Drew was still over despite this stupid feud that he's been in and the kicking out of the End of Days where, you know, Corbin sold the hell out of it. Commentary pointed out that no one's kicked out of it. Yeah. This is why you have to protect your finishers, people.
No, I agree 100%. You know, I said this leading into this when we were doing our reviews, but I'm sorry, when we were making our predictions, but I think Baron Corbin is drastically underrated. I think that he has personality. I think that he gets good heat when he's the bad guy. And I think that he actually usually puts on good matches, especially when he's in there with the upper tier guys, somebody like a Drew McIntyre. Yeah. This match itself, you know, leading into it, whether you like the feud or you dislike the feud, they both kind of tried to do their best. I could certainly do without Drew McIntyre and the whole hokiness behind, you know, the sword and stuff like that. I'm not into it because, you know, every time he swings that thing at somebody, essentially he could be charged with attempted murder. And he's, you know, it's not like it's a prop of some sort. It's like a legitimate sword that he's carrying around.
Well, some people have debated that after the ropes break spot that they did where he swung the sword through the ropes and you could actually see the blade bend over the bottom rope. So people think that it might not actually be a real sword now because of that.
Whatever. It's the perception, back to the Undertaker, perception's reality. They want you to believe it's a real sword.
Right.
Oh, he should, anyway, enough about Angela or whatever the hell Angela, right? That's what he calls the sword.
Angela.
So, these guys did their very best trying to build this feud. Happy Corbin, you like him, you dislike him. He's at least invested in his character, as is Madcap Moss. And they kind of built, even though it wasn't something that a lot of people were invested in, at least they were committed to trying to build the best feud going into this. They built this tension between both Happy Corbin and Madcap going into this match the whole time over the past couple of weeks. Just the fact that, Happy Corbin wasn't buying into the jokes. He didn't think certain things were as funny that he used to do. And he actually got involved in the match, which inevitably kind of cost him the match at the end of it. So,
yep.
Not a bad match. From this point on in the show, this is where I felt like, the first match, the unfortunate events led into this. The second match of the night really kind of turned things up a little bit, and it kind of progressed throughout the rest of the night and kind of maintained momentum. And I think that these guys went out there and put on, I would consider it as a solid match. Is it a classic WrestleMania match? No, but there's certainly been much worse matches. And at the very end of the day, I found it to be a good, solid, entertaining match, which is what I thought we were going to get out of these two.
Right, totally agree. And we'll head to the next match here. The Miz turns on Logan Paul after their win against the Mysterios. I do have to point out, though, we got a little bit of throwback with the Mysterios. Not only did we see Dominic Mysterio give a tip of the cap to Eddie Guerrero with his attire, we also saw the well-known entrance of Rey Mysterio where he came up from under the stage. I've been wondering, since they've done a lot of these stages setups before with like an elevated stage, when is Rey Mysterio going to come through again? And they haven't done it. They finally did it this time. It was very cool, unexpected, loved it. And then we got The Miz and Logan Paul. And we wonder, was Logan Paul going to, be effective in this match? Will he actually take it seriously? Will he actually be good in the ring? And for the second year in a row, The Miz brings out a celebrity that shines in the damn match.
For the second year in a row, the IWC looks foolish because these are the types of things that these guys are terrible. Nobody knows who Logan Paul is. He's got 23 million subscriptions on YouTube. People know who Logan Paul is, as do they know who his brother is, who was on the pre-show. Just because you don't know him or you want to downplay the significance of the celebrity that's in whatever match they're in, doesn't mean, one, they're not relevant, or two, they're not going to be able to work. And Logan Paul, dare I say, might have had the most heat on the night, which is exactly what you wanted to see. And when he needed to wrestle and look effective and look good in whatever spots he was involved in, he looked good. So, the match itself to me too was good too. What did you think of the match? I thought it was fine. I thought the match was really good. And, you talk about the heat and Logan Paul not only doing the frog splash, but Three Amigos. So another tip of the cap of Eddie Guerrero, which got major heat, especially in Texas where, Eddie's from, and being the Mysterios. I thought that was great. Logan Paul looked amazing. I thought their chemistry with The Miz was very good as a tag team. And for the most part, they worked the hot tag, on Dominic and Rey Mysterio too. So I thought it was a solid match and very surprised to see The Miz being the one to turn on Logan Paul. And it makes you wonder, was it a face turn or was he just being a heel doing heelish things and Logan Paul now becomes a baby face in the process? Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with Logan Paul. It's very obvious to me that he's a natural heel. They would be hard-pressed to find and convince fans, especially after this match, to cheer for Logan Paul. So if anything, I think this is probably going to be a face turn for the Miz.
Right.
I don't know what they intend to do with the Miz and Logan Paul going forward, if they're going to try to build a feud or a match for those two. But, at the end of the day, I thought just the match itself, everybody kind of delivered when they needed to deliver. Logan Paul is obviously a natural heel. obviously knows how to get under people's skin. He probably gets under people's skin by just walking in the room because he's one of those guys that you just love to hate. And he was able to kind of dial into that and piss people off last night, which is what you want from a bad guy or a heel. So not necessarily a bad thing. I really like the finish of this match because it really made you think that, okay, as the Mysterios got that late momentum in the end or at the tail end of the match, I thought the Mysterios were going to win. The Miz made that hot tag or the tag, I think, on Logan Paul's back without most people seeing it. He snuck in and he got the pin, which I thought was great because it was a good swerve. Let people to believe that the Mysterios were going to win, and that didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah, I thought this was a really good, solid match, kind of building off the match that kind of happened before it. So
right.
I thought everybody did their part really well.
Yeah, they did. I mean, really good match, and maybe WWE might need to consider a celebrity division in their in WWE between Bad Bunny, now Logan Paul. We'll see Johnny Knoxville and Pat McAfee later. Maybe get Lawrence Taylor out of retirement. Who knows? But
we got,
there's a lot of people you could throw in there. But let's talk about what I think was the match of the night: Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. Now, you talk about earlier the IWC getting stuff wrong and looking very foolish. Let's all go back to August of 2021, and Bianca Belair loses to Becky Lynch in 26 seconds.
Yep.
Everyone and their mother and their father and their sister and their brother said, Bianca Belair is buried. Well, I don't think so. No, this was the plan all along. And the crowd popped the hell for Bianca Belair after she won. So for all you that think one loss means you're buried, if you think WWE does not know how to make stars, if you think that anyone that comes from NXT and goes to the main roster just to flounder in the mid-card, this is an example of why you're wrong. They've built Bianca Belair from the ground up. She main evented WrestleMania last year, had the match of night one last night against Becky Lynch, and the feud was definitely main event quality, and they proved it in the ring that this match should have main evented. It was a great match.
May have had the best match last year at WrestleMania too. Her and Sasha had a great match last year. So, I texted you. I said, I know they call her big time Bex. It's almost like we might want to consider big time Bianca, because when she's put in a big match in a tight spot and a big spot, she delivers. Last night's match was awesome. You can go back and forth and debate whether you want to call that the match of the night. I imagine most people would say it was either this match or it would have been the Seth and Cody match, which we'll get into. But as far as this is concerned, I keep saying this. People want long-term storytelling and they want long-term booking and all that type of stuff, but they don't have the patience to let things progress and build. Now, there's a big part of this that we're kind of overlooking. Has WWE been known to have things happen and have people lose in similar fashion like Bianca and then not revisit it or let somebody get their win back? Yes, they have. So I think to a certain extent, when people see that happen, like what happened with Bianca and Becky, they start to lose faith that WWE will actually take the time to invest in somebody like Bianca or anybody else. That's obviously what happened with Kofi, unfortunately. We go back to when Brock beat him in very convincing fashion, and then, we didn't get the follow-up or anything like that, or we really haven't seen Kofi been pushed to that extent. Now, with Bianca, last night was a very good example of how you can lose and pretty much get dominated, but be built back up. Because this win, especially having Becky being who she is, just as a character, as a face when she's super over, or as a heel where she's getting a ton of heat and going out there and really being invested in herself, that helps legitimize a win like with Bianca for last night. Because had it just been Bianca going out there and facing somebody who they built a story for, let's say, a month or two, yeah, it would be good for her to get a win at WrestleMania, but at the same time, it wouldn't be as impactful or meaningful as a win like last night, because they spent so much time building this story, building this feud. The fact that Becky did dominate their first time that they did have a match. So all of that stuff played a big factor going into this match, and it meant a whole lot coming out of the match, knowing that Bianca did win. And Bianca, is one of the few people who, in an age in pro wrestling where, you have the snarkier, the smarter fan who just is going to boo any face or anybody who gets to the point where you want them to be, they're just going to boo them for the sake of booing them. Okay, well, we want this person to be champion. They're the champion. We're sick of them. Let's boo them. Now, it started to happen a little bit with Drew McIntyre. Bianca is the first person in a long time that I've seen where it seems like, unanimously people just get behind her as a babyface. And that's what you want. Now, eventually, I'm sure that will wear off. The act will probably get old, as it does with everybody. It happened to the likes of Hulk Hogan. The only one I can't think of it happening to was, I guess, Stone Cold Steve Austin. It happened to The Rock. It happened to Hogan. But she is very well liked and accepted. And above all, she can wrestle. She delivers in a big match more times than she doesn't. And last night, her and Becky went out there and silenced any critics that they may have had, especially Becky, because I know sometimes she gets a reputation for not delivering or being sloppy or not putting on good matches. They both killed it last night. This is probably my favorite Becky match in a long time. And Bianca, like I said, just kind of re-upped what she did last year and delivered another classic WrestleMania match.
Right. And I think what was great about this match, too, was the story told in the match where Becky was going to do whatever it took to win, even if she had to cheat. But Bianca knew that ahead of time and always was one step ahead of her. So she was the smartest in the match. She was the strongest. She was the quickest. She was the fastest. All those ESTs that she says she was. And I will admit, she had the best entrance last night with that marching band, too. So
her entrance was, well, the finish of the match I like, too. And that's one of the things that I like about Bianca is because she's so athletic, it allows them to do innovative spots that you wouldn't normally see from just anybody else, whether that's because of her strength that they're trying to highlight. Like I remember last year, Sasha, where she had her kind of in that overhead press position and she walked her up the stairs and threw her back into the ring. And then the finish last night where she did that backflip into the KOD. So, she's very good. And I think that she definitely is one of the few individuals who went from like that mid card at one point and just somebody that they can just put out there as a main eventer whenever they want, similar to like Sasha, Bayley, Becky, any of those people. She's in that category for sure right now.
Right. So I think at this point now, she's really outside of the 4 horsewomen. She's really the only one in the women's division where you could say, like, that's a main eventer in the women's division.
And not only that, but this also kind of, again, confirms what we've been saying on the show forever. Not everybody goes from NXT and can be successful, but it doesn't mean there aren't a select few, because it is more difficult than people let on, that are going to come from NXT and find success. Bianca Belair, I was at takeovers where she was wrestling and they booed her because her character in NXT didn't match what that fan base wanted. She's better suited for the main roster, but she's another one who worked her way up through NXT and now is finding success. So for everybody that out there that wants to say, NXT's a failure, they don't breed new stars. No, it's just not everybody is meant to be on the main roster, or whatever works in NXT doesn't mean it's going to work on the main roster. She's another example of somebody who can work their way up through NXT and find success, and especially the women's division. That's another person who again, they've produced so many successful women that have come up from NXT, and now you can add her name to that list for sure.
Right. I think what it comes down to, and this could be a separate debate, for a separate episode, is when they have someone from the ground up, and basically this is what NXT 2.0 is, they can make them a superstar. And that's what Bianca Belair was, because she had no indie experience. She literally came from college as a track star to the WWE with zero experience, and they made her a WWE Wrestlemania main eventer and a huge focal point in the women's division. Now, let's head out to the next match, which does feature a couple indie darlings, if you will, but the mystery opponent was revealed. And I'll admit, after Friday night, in that amazing speech by The Undertaker, and he closed it out with "Never Say Never," I'm like, oh crap, they're making him the mystery opponent so that they could have like this 5-minute squash match. He could hit his greatest hits in front of a crowd, because he never got to have that final match in front of fans. This would finally be it. But no, They actually delivered. They delivered. They actually were dropping hints that it was Cody Rhodes. The reports were true. The fans were not working themselves. Cody Rhodes, the WWE confirmed. And on top of that, it's not Stardust. And on top of that, Cody Rhodes addresses they're just going to make him Stardust by doing the Stardust taunt. And Corey Graves with the best call in that match was, no, he's not celebrating. He's shedding skin off his back. That was
Corey Graves had a couple of good calls last night. This was probably one of the better Corey Graves commentary matches, even from Cody's entrance, when he literally called back to Cody's epic promo when he said, he's went from undesirable to undeniable. He called back to that. I think they certainly ignored a couple things, didn't want to bring light to the fact that he did find success in AEW, but I didn't expect them to.
They did say 6 years he made a name for himself and then came back. So without saying Ring of Honor, New Japan, and AEW, but and Seth Rollins did in fact kind of bring up AEW by saying welcome back to the big leagues, which I'm sure just gave a 1 star off of Meltzer's star rating for this match just for that comment alone, but we'll see when those come out later this week.
So here's what I thought from beginning to end. The lights went out. I immediately thought what you thought, and I talked to you about after Undertaker's speech. I said, okay, if it's not Cody, I think it's going to be Undertaker. And I would have been okay with that had it been, had the Undertaker not given that epic speech. I don't know how I would have felt about it. But I felt like the Undertaker had so much momentum after that epic speech that if it was the Undertaker, okay, I'd be okay with it. Once the lights went out, I thought, okay, it's either Undertaker or Fiend. But then we got, the whole thing about there's more than one royal family in pro wrestling, and the place went absolutely nuts. And this is the first point I want to make. Whether you're a fan of AEW or whether you're Tony Khan or whether you're a fan of WWE, this is why competition is a good thing in pro wrestling. Because it's very obvious, and I said this for so long, that the Cody Rhodes that went to AEW, or even before that, New Japan, Ring of Honor, that is not Stardust. Cody Rhodes bet on himself. He walked away from whatever contract WWE offered him, and he said, I'm going to go and do something different. He's the first guy in a really long time that went outside of WWE and really made a name for himself and recreated himself, and now he's found his way back, and it meant so much. But for the AEW fans and for Tony Khan even, they should be, as much as it sucks to see him go to WWE, if you're a fan of those companies or other companies, you should feel proud. You should be happy because it shows you that however many the real amount of people there, 50,000, 60,000, 70,000.
66, I think, is what the ticket distributor was.
Whatever it may be, that reaction just confirms that, look, if you're AEW, you can build stars. It pretty much was confirmed right there. Cody Rhodes, that's not the same Cody that was in WWE prior to him leaving. That is the version that he helped kind of create, but AEW gave the platform to shine and become who he is today. So him going back and getting that type of reception in, I imagine, what you would consider enemy territory, if you want to call it that, only confirms that, look, AEW can build stars and they can give people the platform to be successful. Now, on the other hand, if you're an MJF or you're a Jade Cargill or Wardlow or anybody that might be even considering a jump to WWE, last night on a one-night basis, granted because it's only one night here, that we're talking about this based on, it shows you that if you're successful and you're the right person, they will treat you like a star. Because Cody last night came across as a star. It was in hindsight, it was the absolute right decision to wait until WrestleMania to debut him or repackage him or whatever you want to call it, because it was palpable. I mean, the ovation he got. Seth Rollins was the perfect guy to go against him because of the whole history where Seth has made some pretty significant comments about guys that do work in AEW or WWE being the big leagues and all that type of stuff. So having a guy like Cody come from AEW to WWE, it was more impactful going against a guy like Seth. And, honestly, commentary said it, and I literally sat back and thought to myself a couple things. One, this is an absolute huge, memorable WrestleMania moment. And two, it was just surreal. Like if we got Cody back last night, I did not think we were going to get the Cody entrance. I didn't think that we were going to get the music and all of that type. If it was one guy going from WWE to AEW, I would say absolutely I could see it because they give you more freedom there creatively and all that type of stuff. And, they kind of cater to a smarter fan, if you want to call it that. But to see Cody go to WrestleMania with everything, the American Nightmare, the theme song, the entrance, it was honestly surreal. Like I almost felt like I had to sit back because I didn't believe it was actually happening, it was just crazy.
Right. I think this was the biggest ovation a quote unquote outsider got in a debut since AJ came in the 2016 Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
And like the fact that his character, the fact that his presentation, his moveset, nothing was touched. Now, this could be a one night thing and things could derail from here till now, but I think anybody that had a doubt that, he's just going to be Stardust, he's just going to be a mid-carder, he's not going to be a big player, AEW won't miss him.
Yeah.
I think that case is closed. I think, as I thought heading into it, if Cody was coming back, we will eventually see him challenging for world championships. Maybe one day he ends up winning it. Who knows? If this momentum continues from last night, he's probably going to be the guy that beats Roman. I'm not afraid to say that.
Well, I mean, because there's a couple of things too. Cody, or not just Cody, but if you're gonna wrestle in the WWE or you're gonna wrestle in AEW, like you're definitely gonna be one or the other, skilled in the ring or a really good personality. I mean, to find success in pro wrestling, you probably have to have both. The best of the best have both, but in reality, if you're going to be working at that level in one of those companies, you're either a really good wrestler or you can talk or have a personality and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Cody has both.
Yes.
He can go out there and cut epic promos. We've seen him do it a million times. And for anybody that had a question about Cody Rhodes' skill set, ability to have great matches, which he did it time and time again in AEW, so I don't even know why it was ever questioned or presented that, he's mid, as they like to call it, or he's not a true main eventer, or, he's subpar. BS, man. Because last night, him and Seth put on a freaking classic. Not only that, this was a lot more hard-hitting than I ever anticipated to be. Cody Rhodes was an absolute mess after this match.
Yeah, and he didn't need the blade. I did see someone tweet, jokingly saying Cody Rhodes was looking for the blade from the ref, and the ref responded, "This isn't AEW."
Well, in any event, I mean, Cody certainly silenced his critics, and Cody Rhodes, going back to what your original point, he has the ability to have a character, the belief in himself, cut great promos, and he can wrestle. And for anybody that's going to go over Roman, Roman certainly is their cash cow right now. And if Brock isn't going to beat him, you need somebody with a personality or whatever else to carry that torch. Mm-hmm. And Cody certainly has that ability. So we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously, it's only one night. We have to see what happens with all the weeks and months going forward. But Cody has a ton of momentum behind him right now after last night. So we'll see.
Yeah.
And the match was great. The match was very, very, very good. Probably one of Seth's best matches, certainly ever, but in a very long time. And he's another one, too, that gets a bad rep for non-WWE fans for somebody who's overrated, can't deliver, subpar. Again,
can't deliver.
Narratives.
Have they watched Seth Rollins at WrestleMania? He's starting to become like a Mr. WrestleMania on his own. With the match last night, last year with Cesaro, his match with Cody with Randy Orton at WrestleMania 31, and the heights of the century.
Tell me.
I know, but I'm just saying these are just arguments that people should start bringing up with Seth Rollins. It's just because of what happened with The Fiend and some of the things he says on Twitter and bringing his bank book into the conversation with Will Ospreay. That's why they hate him. It's not because of his in-ring. They just use it as an example of why they don't like him. But Seth Rollins is one of the best wrestlers in the world. And if you can't agree with that, I want to know why in the comments below. But let's head to the next match. We got Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair. There's a positive to this. Was it the best match ever? No, but there's a positive to this. The fans didn't hijack it. Thank God the fans just watched the damn match.
The fans were invested from the start of the show to the end of the night. Now, were there moments in certain matches where they weren't as loud? Yes, but to credit to anybody who had a match last night, they got the fans back into the match when they needed to. This was not a bad match. It wasn't a great all-time classic match, but it was good. It was solid. I wouldn't give it like 5 stars or whatever kind of range you want to give it. But it was good. I mean, Ronda Rousey, another one who gets a bad reputation for somebody who can't wrestle, can't deliver. She's not the most skilled wrestler, but she certainly held her own. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I didn't have high hopes. My big concern was that they were going to hijack the match. Credit to the fans last night because there were no stupid, and I wrote this down, one of the takeaways for the night, there were no stupid chants. There were no hijackings. It was just, we're here to enjoy a good wrestling show, and they were invested when they needed to be invested, and it made for a good wrestling atmosphere, almost like a throwback atmosphere.
Yeah.
You didn't get, until the end of the night, you didn't get what chants, you didn't get any of the other this is awesome chants, which isn't so bad, but you really didn't get that stuff. It was just kind of like a classic wrestling fan.
You had sports entertainment fans last night. You didn't have
Whatever
pro
you wanna
wrestling fans, as if you want to separate the two terms, which they're the same, but still, either way. I'm a little surprised that Charlotte does end up winning, though, and the finish makes sense if you even go into the little details and you're a little bit of a smarter fan, because, Ralph, who was the referee in this match?
Oh, Charles Robinson?
It was Charles Robinson, a.k.a. Little Nate.
Yep.
Little Nate screwed over Ronda Rousey because he counted 3 and then reversed it, and then he fell asleep when Ronda Rousey was tapping out Charlotte Flair, and then magically woke up when she let go of the submission. Big boot, Charlotte wins. Now, I might be explaining that in kayfabe terms, but still, the finish was interesting, and I'm interested to see where this goes, if they're going to extend this storyline, or is Ronda going to go away for a while? Because people think Ronda's part-time, but in her 2 runs, she was there almost every week. She just left to have a baby. So I don't know if that's really considered part-time.
No, and honestly, again, such a silly narrative, because going back to so many of the unfortunate passings of wrestlers who were so young, far too young to be passing away and all that type of stuff. But they all talked about the grind that was on the road, 300 plus days a year. Bret Hart just talked about it. I think Kevin Nash acknowledged it with the unfortunate passing of Scott Hall. Why are we pushing for more days? Like, if you can build a good story and have somebody go away and get some rest for 3 months to be with their family or recuperate and not have their body break down, that's a bad thing all of a sudden. It's just, again, these narratives that come up, the talking points that come up to try and justify the most ridiculous things. Why Edge shouldn't main event? Oh, he's a part-timer. Why Ronda Rousey shouldn't be involved in WrestleMania? Oh, she's a part-timer. Well, I'm sorry. It's like, screw her for wanting to go and have a family. No, they're human beings too. Like, we shouldn't be pushing for more days just because it appeases you and justifies why somebody should have a main event spot. If they're over, they're over. If they can work, they can work. If they're older and they could still work, let them have the match. And if they can get X amount of days off, because that's what means they'll be able to go out there and perform and still have a family and all that type of stuff, who the hell cares? Stop with these dumb narratives that you guys come up with.
Right. After all, they're independent contractors, right? We want them to be independent contractors, not employees.
Whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Whatever you want. So many pro wrestlers have come out and talk about how bad it is for you to be on the road and work through injuries and stuff. CM Punk said it. So it's not just like it's confined to one company, but then all of a sudden when it's convenient to say, oh, well, that's a part-timer, they don't deserve a spot, or they shouldn't work because they're part-time. What's part-time? Like, Edge, going back to last year, was supposedly part-time. He's been on almost all the Raws or SmackDowns when he's been supposed to be there to promote his match. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. But the match itself wasn't one that is going to break Meltzer's star ratings or everyone's going to talk about for the rest of their lives. Like, oh my God, this was the greatest match ever. It was a solid match. It delivered higher than my expectations of it. And the crowd just not hijacking it helped with that matter. But the main event of the night, Ralph, Stone Cold Steve Austin does actually have a match with Kevin Owens. And not only that, it's a no holds barred match. Yeah. His first match in 19 years. He ends up winning against Kevin Owens. This exceeded my expectations too, because even going into the night, my wife was like, are they really having Stone Cold have a match? And I'm like, no, they're really just going to have a talk and then one of them's going to get stunned and that's it. But no, they actually have it where Kevin Owens is like, sorry, Steve, I tricked you. I actually wanted you to come out so I could challenge you to a no holds barred match. And the look on Austin's face really made it seem like this is the first time he's hearing that he's going to have this match. Like, he actually sold it. Like, you son of a bitch. Yeah. You really had me come all this way to have a no holds barred match after 19 years. I can't take bumps like this. I got a bad neck, a bad back, bad knees. I can't have a no holds barred match. Screw you. But then he comes out and he asks, do you want me to kick Kevin Owens' ass? Give me a hell yeah. Hell yeah. The match happens. And it was slow in the beginning. And I was like, wow, Austin doesn't have it. He does not have it. He can't even stump a mud hole in Kevin Owens. Mm-hmm. But as the match progressed, I think he started getting into it and was like, all right, the training wheels are off. I'm starting to get the hang of this. I actually feel the adrenaline again. This feels awesome. And he's taking a suplex on the concrete. He gives a suplex on the stage. He's drinking beer throughout the match. It was like, I mean, it's not the Stone Cold of old, but it was actually quite impressive.
No, it was. And I think initially, I mean, he hasn't done this in 19 years or something?
19 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, even when you go from just, and you hear wrestlers say this all the time, like being in shape is different than being like in ring shape. And granted, this was no holds barred, but still very physical against a guy who does this every single day. So obviously, you're going to see a difference in the speed and the stamina and all that type of stuff. But I do agree with you. I felt like Stone Cold originally came out a little slower, and I was like, oh my God, no, like, don't let this come across bad. Like, it's been such a good night. He's such a legend. He's literally, in my opinion, the greatest character of all time. Like, I didn't want this to go and like tarnish him in any way. And I don't think it did. By the end of it, I was like, okay, this is great. I feel like he found like a second gear, or like adrenaline kicked in and took over, and he was able to really kind of perform after that. Because, you know, was it an all-time great match? No, not by any means. But was it what I would consider like a WrestleMania moment and something that had the fans happy to see? Absolutely. Kevin Owens is, I don't think you want to say underrated. I think you could probably just say awesome, because he sold his ass off in this match. Stone Cold did his part. A lot of the spots that he did, including the suplexes and stuff that you already mentioned, caught me by surprise. I did not think that we were going to get him being that physical or any of those spots. I didn't even expect the match. So the match itself, I was like, oh my God, they're actually going to do this.
Yeah.
And you know, it was for what it was very good, and it made for a good ending on what was, in my opinion, a really, really good night for WWE last night.
Yeah. And if I can just summarize night one of WrestleMania, it was that when they want to deliver, they can deliver. When they want to make a star, they can make a star. When they want to work the hell out of you, they will work the hell out of you and keep you guessing and wondering, oh, is it going to be Cody? Is it not going to be Cody? Did they build it up right? Did they not build it up right? And the whole NXT argument. Think about everyone that was on that card and who went through NXT, and Triple H. Triple H, quietly got a tip of the cap last night with all the people that came from NXT and delivered last night, from Kevin Owens, Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, all went through NXT, all had big moments, all had decent matches. There was not a bad match on the night. The one thing I will say that is Shinsuke Nakamura was another one. The one thing I will say that was a negative from this match, or from this night, one, the fact that the New Day versus Sheamus and Rich Holland got cut due to time constraints. That could have easily been avoided with the excess amount of video packages. Now, I understand it's WWE. Every match, especially at WrestleMania, has a video package before their match. So I'm not even like too upset that there were too many video packages, but you know, the fact that a match got cut because of it, and I hope at least they, you know, make good of it by at least putting them on the kickoff for night 2. And
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's the only negative that I have from this night.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. The video. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say the things that needed to deliver did deliver. They delivered with Becky and Bianca. They delivered with Cody, and Stone Cold Steve Austin actually presented with a presentable match.
Right. And that my biggest takeaways of night one, I felt like WWE certainly hit a home run last night and set the bar really high for night 2. It's going to be, especially when you look at the matches that are going to be happening tonight, it's going to be difficult for them to kind of meet that same standard, but it might happen. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But last night, I think, was a very good night for WWE because of how good the matches ended up being. The one thing that I do want to point out is, as you said, look at some of the bigger storylines heading into WrestleMania night 1 last night. You had Bianca and you had Becky, which was one of the longer storylines that they've done in a really long time. That match delivered, and that was obviously very good. You had Kevin Owens and Stone Cold Steve Austin, which was, again, one of their bigger storylines heading into WrestleMania, and I felt like that delivered. And then most importantly, probably, you had Cody and Seth, which they were teasing Cody for weeks and weeks and weeks. He never showed up. It made for an epic debut or repackaging of Cody Rhodes, whatever you want to call it. Seth Rollins really was relied upon to kind of build that storyline going into WrestleMania all by himself. So those 3 storylines heading into Mania made for really great moments where the fans got exactly what they wanted to get. And it just goes to show you, like, this is the other thing I wanted to point out. There were no gimmicky matches. There were no silly things. It was like, look, they're all pro wrestlers at the end of the day. Sports entertainers, pro wrestlers, whatever you want to call them. Last night, they just let them go out there and do what pro wrestlers do and have matches. And look at what happened. It was a great showing for WWE, probably one of the better WrestleManias, in my opinion, in a really, really long time. And I even saw some of the snarkiest of snarky non-WWE fans, like on Twitter, giving credit to WWE for last night. We've been on here numerous times where WWE doesn't deliver in big spots, and you know, last night was not one of those cases. They delivered, I think, on all fronts in the ring, storylines heading into WrestleMania. And we'll see what happens tonight. But if tonight's WrestleMania is good, tonight's showing, I think a lot of people might actually consider this one of the best WrestleManias of all time, because night 1, it certainly, in my opinion, is in that category. I don't know if you agree, but I hold it up there with some of the better WrestleManias that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on what happens with night 2. You know, Brock and Roman have a lot of weight on their shoulders.
Yes, they do.
They really do. Especially because it's being hyped the biggest WrestleMania match ever. If that doesn't even come close to being presentable and delivering, it just throws the whole thing out, I think. That's how much. And, you know, I think night 1 was a very top-heavy card where even the lower card matches not a lot of people were interested in, but the matches that mattered did deliver.
Yep.
Night 2 has a little bit more, you know, balance in it. And, you know, storylines were throughout the whole card. So if this does deliver, I think I agree with you. This might be talked about with the likes of 17 and 19 and 20 and as one of the best WrestleManias ever. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But let us know your thoughts of night 1 of WrestleMania in the comments below. Don't forget to share us all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, SCPB Podcast. Subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. We'll see you on the next episode of the Squared Circle Psycho Babble.